Lieutenant Colonel Diana Crawford thought she knew every aircraft in the Air Force inventory. She'd flown everything from F-16s to B-2 bombers, analyzed classified systems from Moscow to Beijing. But nothing prepared her for what she discovered in Hangar 18 at Edwards Air Force Base. Behind locked doors and armed guards lay America's most legendary spy plane, the State Route 71 Blackbird. Not one, but 7 of them. Aircraft that were supposed to be scrapped decades ago, now gleaming under fluorescent lights with modifications she'd never seen before. What she found there would change everything she believed about military secrets, national security, and the true meaning of duty. Diana Crawford parked her Jeep outside the Edwards Air Force Base headquarters and checked her watch. 7:30 sharp. She walked through the automatic doors, her boots clicking on the polished floor. Colonel Crawford reporting to General Harrison, she told the desk sergeant. "He's waiting for you, ma'am. Conference room 3. Diana found General Harrison standing at the window, looking out at the flight line. Steam rose from his coffee cup. He turned when she entered. "Diana. Good to see you." "Morning, sir. Your message said urgent." Harrison gestured to a chair. "Sit. Coffee?" "I'm fine, thank you." He settled across from her, studying her face. "How long have you been analyzing aircraft systems?" 12 years, sir." "Why?" "And flying?" 18 years total." "Sir, what's this about?" Harrison opened a manila folder. "I have a special assignment. It requires someone with your specific skills." Diana waited. "We have some surplus aircraft that need cataloging. Detailed inspection. Assessment of condition and value." "Surplus aircraft?" "Older models. Been in storage for years. The Pentagon wants a complete inventory before final disposition." Diana frowned. "Couldn't maintenance handle that?" "Not these aircraft. They're classified." "We're classified. It's complicated." "What kind of aircraft?" Harrison closed the folder. "You'll see when you get there. The assignment is voluntary, but I'm hoping you'll take it." "Where is there?" "Hangar 18. About 2 miles from here." Diana knew Hangar 18. Everyone did. It sat alone on the north side of the base, surrounded by fencing and warning signs. She'd never seen anyone go in or out. "How long will this take?" "A week. Maybe 2. Depends on what you find." "General, you're being awfully mysterious about some surplus aircraft." Harrison stood up. "Diana, I've known you since you were a captain. You're thorough. You're discreet. And you understand the importance of following orders." "Yes, sir." "Good. You start tomorrow at 0800. Report to the hangar. You'll be met there." Diana stood. "Met by who?" "The current caretaker. He'll show you around." "Current caretaker?" "Someone's been maintaining these aircraft. Making sure they stay in good condition." Diana walked to the door, then stopped. "Sir, can I ask why these aircraft are still classified if they're surplus?" Harrison sat back down. "Some things take time to declassify. Bureaucracy moves slowly. But they're being scrapped? That's what the assessment will determine." Diana left the building more confused than when she'd arrived. She drove slowly through the base, taking the long way back to her quarters. When she passed Hangar 18, she slowed down. The hangar was enormous. Big enough for bombers. 2 guards stood at the gate, checking IDs of a supply truck. As she watched, the truck drove through and the massive hangar doors opened just enough to let it inside. Diana caught a glimpse of darkness beyond the doors. Then they closed again. That evening, she called her friend Sarah at the Pentagon. "Hey, it's Diana. Quick question. Do you know anything about surplus aircraft storage at Edwards?" "Which hangar?" 18. Silence on the other end. "Sarah?" "I'm here." "Why are you asking?" I got assigned to catalog some aircraft there. Diana, I can't talk about Hangar 18 on this line. Can't or won't? Both. Be careful. Sarah hung up. Diana stared at her phone. She'd known Sarah for 10 years. Sarah didn't spook easily. She spent the evening researching Hangar 18 online. Nothing. No mention in any base directories. No photos. No history. It was as if the hangar didn't exist. The next morning, Diana dressed in her flight suit and drove to the hangar. The same 2 guards were there. They checked her ID twice before waving her through. She parked near the main entrance and walked to the smaller personnel door. Before she could knock, it opened. Colonel Crawford? I'm Chief Master Sergeant Williams. Everyone calls me Tank. Tank was about 60, with gray hair and steady eyes. His uniform was perfect, but his hands showed years of mechanical work. Ready to see what we've got in here? Diana nodded. Tank opened the door wide. Welcome to the most secret hangar in the Air Force. Diana stepped inside and stopped. The hangar was dimly lit, but she could make out the shapes of aircraft under protective covers. 7 of them, arranged in a neat row. What are they? Tank walked to the nearest aircraft and placed his hand on the cover. Something that was supposed to be impossible to hide. He pulled the cover back, revealing a sleek black nose cone that Diana recognized immediately. My God, she whispered. That's in State Route 71. Diana walked around the State Route 71, her eyes taking in every detail. The aircraft looked perfect, like it had just rolled off the production line. But something was different. Tank, this doesn't look like any Blackbird I've seen in the museums. That's because it's not. Tank pulled back more of the cover, revealing the entire aircraft. Look at the nose cone. Diana stepped closer. The nose was longer than standard, with unusual sensor arrays built into the skin. What are those? Advanced radar systems. But not the kind you'd expect. She walked to the wing. Instead of the familiar sharp edges, this aircraft had subtle curves that seemed to blend into the fuselage. The wing design is different too. Stealth modifications. Took them 3 years to get it right. Them? Tank gestured toward the back of the hangar. There's an office back there. Files going back 20 years. This wasn't just storage, Colonel. This was active development. Diana moved to the engine intakes. They were covered with a mesh she'd never seen before. What's this material? Radar absorbent. Experimental stuff. Makes the aircraft nearly invisible to most tracking systems. Nearly invisible? Diana looked up at Tank. The State Route 71 was already hard to track. This version is harder. Much harder. Diana walked to the cockpit and peered inside. The instrument panel was different. Modern digital displays mixed with analog gauges. The avionics have been upgraded. Everything has been upgraded. Engines, navigation, communications. But they kept the analog backups. Why? Because analog systems can't be hacked. Diana felt a chill. Hacked? Tank nodded toward the other covered aircraft. Want to see the rest? They walked to the second aircraft. Tank pulled back the cover, revealing another modified State Route 71. This one had even more unusual features. Strange pods mounted under the wings. Additional sensors along the fuselage. What are the pods? Electronic warfare equipment. Jamming systems. This bird can not only avoid detection, it can blind enemy radar while it's flying. Diana stared at the aircraft. Tank, who authorized this? That's above my pay grade. I just keep them running. How long have you been here? 15 years. I was here when they brought the first one in for modification. And you've been maintaining them all this time? Me and a small team. We keep them flight ready. Diana walked to the third aircraft. Flight ready? These things actually fly. Once a month. We take them up for systems checks. Can't let them just sit. You fly them? I don't. But we have pilots who do. Diana pulled back the third cover herself. This aircraft was different again. Sleeker, if that was possible. The skin seemed to shimmer under the hangar lights. What makes it do that? Adaptive camouflage. The skin changes color based on the environment. Not perfect, but it helps. Diana stepped back. Tank, these modifications must have cost millions. Try billions. And they're just sitting here? Tank walked to a workbench and picked up a thick manual. Project Shadowhawk. Started in 2003. The idea was to create the ultimate reconnaissance platform. I've never heard of Project Shadowhawk. You weren't supposed to. Nobody was. Diana took the manual. The cover was marked with classification stamps she'd never seen before. What happened to the project? Officially, it never existed. Unofficially, it worked too well. Diana flipped through the manual. Page after page of technical specifications, test results, and mission reports. These aircraft actually flew missions? Dozens of them. Over countries that didn't know we were there. Through airspace that was supposed to be impossible to penetrate. And then someone decided they were too dangerous. Diana looked up from the manual. Too dangerous for who? For politics. These aircraft could go anywhere, see anything, and nobody could stop them. That made a lot of people nervous. So they shut it down? They buried it. Moved the aircraft here. Classified everything. Pretended it never happened. Diana walked back to the first aircraft. But you kept them running. Orders. Keep them maintained. Keep them ready. Ready for what? I don't know. But someone thought we might need them someday. Diana ran her hand along the aircraft's wing. The surface was smooth, almost warm to the touch. How many people know about this? Here on base? Maybe a dozen. In Washington? Maybe fewer. And they just forgot about these aircraft? They tried to. But you can't forget something this important. Tank walked to a computer terminal and turned it on. Want to see something really interesting? Diana followed him. The screen showed a map of the world with various flight paths marked in different colors. What am I looking at? Mission logs. Every flight these aircraft made. Look at the dates. Diana studied the screen. The most recent mission was only 6 months ago. They're still flying? Not missions. Test flights. But we keep the capability sharp. Who authorizes the test flights? Someone with a lot of authority. I get the orders, I don't ask questions. Diana stared at the screen. Tank, why are you showing me this? Because you're here to catalog these aircraft. But I think you're really here to decide what happens to them. What do you mean? I mean someone in Washington is finally ready to make a decision. Either put these birds back in service or scrap them for real this time. Diana looked around the hangar. 7 of the most advanced aircraft ever built, sitting in darkness. What do you think should happen? Tank turned off the computer. I think the world is getting more dangerous every day. And I think these aircraft might be the only thing standing between us and the dark. Diana walked back to the first aircraft. Can I see the maintenance logs? All of them? All of them. Tank smiled for the first time since she'd arrived. This is going to take a while. As they walked toward the office, Diana heard the sound of jet engines in the distance. Normal base traffic. But suddenly, normal seemed like a luxury she might not have much longer. Diana spent the morning reviewing maintenance logs when her phone buzzed. General Harrison's name appeared on the screen. Colonel Crawford. Diana, I need you at the command center. Now. Sir, I'm still going through the aircraft documentation. Leave it. This is priority 1. Diana drove across the base, wondering what could be more important than her assignment. The command center was buzzing with activity. Officers hurried between workstations, their faces tense. General Harrison met her at the entrance. "We have a situation." He led her to a large screen showing a world map. Red X marks covered several locations. "What am I looking at?" "Dead satellites. 18 of them in the last 4 hours." Diana studied the display. "Equipment failure? Cyber attack. Someone hit our entire reconnaissance network." Colonel Webb from the Pentagon stood near the screen, talking rapidly into a secure phone. Diana had worked with Webb before. He was smart but rigid, the kind of officer who followed procedures even when they didn't make sense. "How bad is it?" Diana asked. "We're blind," Harrison said. "No satellite intelligence. No real-time surveillance. Our enemies know it." Diana watched as more red X marks appeared on the screen. "Can we restore the satellites?" "Not quickly. The attacks damaged ground control systems too. We're looking at weeks, maybe months." Webb finished his call and walked over. "Colonel Crawford. I heard you were cataloging some old aircraft." "Yes, sir." "Well, that project just became irrelevant. We need to focus on current systems." Diana looked at the screen again. "What are our current systems telling us?" "Nothing. That's the problem." An intelligence officer approached their group. "General, we're getting reports of unusual military movements in 3 hostile regions." "Show me." The officer pulled up a new display. North Korea, Iran, and Russia. All showing increased activity near strategic installations. Webb frowned. "How do we know this if our satellites are down?" "Human intelligence. Spotty reports from assets on the ground." Diana felt a cold realization. They're coordinating this. "What?" Harrison asked. "The cyber attack and the movements. Our enemies are working together. They blinded us first, now they're moving while we can't see." Webb shook his head. "That's speculation." "Is it? How many times have we seen this pattern? Disable communications, then strike." Another officer hurried over. "General, we just lost contact with our reconnaissance drones over the Pacific." "Mechanical failure?" "Unknown. They just stopped transmitting." Diana walked closer to the screen. "General, what about our manned aircraft? F-22s, B-2s? Grounded. Their systems are too integrated with the satellite network. Without real-time data, they're flying blind." "All of them?" "All modern aircraft rely on satellite navigation and communication. When that network goes down, we lose most of our capabilities." Diana thought about the aircraft in Hangar 18. "What about older systems?" Webb turned to her. "Colonel, this isn't the time for nostalgia. We need modern solutions." "Modern solutions aren't working." "Because we haven't restored them yet." Diana looked at Harrison. "Sir, what if the restoration takes longer than expected?" "Then we adapt. Use what we have." "What do we have?" Harrison was quiet for a moment. "Not much." The intelligence officer returned. "General, we're getting reports of nuclear material being moved in 2 locations." The room went silent. "How reliable are these reports?" Webb asked. "Uncertain. But if true, we need reconnaissance confirmation within hours." Webb pulled out his phone. "I'll contact Washington. We need to prioritize satellite restoration." "Colonel," Harrison said to Diana, "Washington won't like this, but we need options." "All options." Diana understood. "The aircraft in Hangar 18. Can they fly?" "Tank says they're flight ready." "Tank?" "Chief Master Sergeant Williams. He's been maintaining them." Webb looked up from his phone. "What aircraft?" Diana glanced at Harrison, who nodded slightly. "State Route 71 Blackbirds. Modified versions. The State Route 71 was retired decades ago. These weren't. They were upgraded. Upgraded how? Stealth technology. Advanced sensors. Modern avionics with analog backups. Webb put his phone away. Colonel, the State Route 71 was an impressive aircraft for its time, but it's obsolete. Is it? It doesn't need satellites to navigate. It can't be hacked. And it can fly faster and higher than anything our enemies have. It's also dangerous and expensive to operate. More dangerous than flying blind? The intelligence officer interrupted. General, we just received confirmation. Nuclear weapons are being moved in North Korea. Harrison turned to Diana. How quickly could those aircraft be operational? I don't know. I'd have to ask Tank. Ask him. Diana called Tank's number. He answered on the first ring. Tank, it's Colonel Crawford. How fast could you get one of those aircraft ready for a mission? Which one? The most advanced. The one with the adaptive camouflage. 2 hours. Maybe less if you don't need a full systems check. And pilots? I know 2 who are current on the aircraft. Both retired, but they stay qualified. Diana looked at Harrison. 2 hours. Webb stepped forward. General, you can't be serious. We don't authorize missions based on panic. This isn't panic. This is planning. It's reckless. Those aircraft are experimental at best. They're also our only option for immediate reconnaissance. Diana felt the weight of the moment. Sir, what if the cyber attack isn't temporary? What if this is the new normal? Harrison stared at the screen full of red X marks. Then we better hope those old birds can still fly. Webb shook his head. I'm calling the Pentagon. This needs proper authorization. You do that, Harrison said. But in the meantime, we prepare. Diana headed for the door. I'll go talk to Tank. Diana, Harrison called after her. Find out everything those aircraft can do. We might need all of it. As Diana left the command center, she heard Webb arguing with someone on the phone. His voice was getting louder, more frustrated. She drove back to Hangar 18, understanding now why those aircraft had been kept ready. Someone had known this day would come. Diana found Tank in the hangar, running diagnostics on the lead aircraft. He looked up when she entered. That was fast. We have a problem. A big one. Tank set down his tablet. How big? Our entire satellite network is down. Enemy forces are moving nuclear weapons. And we can't see anything. Ah. Tank nodded slowly. So they finally need us. Can you really get this aircraft ready in 2 hours? Already started. I figured something like this would happen eventually. Diana walked to the aircraft. Ground crews were removing engine covers and checking systems. How did you know? Been watching the news. Cyber attacks getting worse every year. Our enemies getting smarter. Only a matter of time before they figured out how to blind us. Who authorized you to prep the aircraft? Same person who's been authorizing everything else. Someone who thinks ahead. Diana's phone rang. General Harrison. Diana, I need you back here. Pentagon wants a briefing on those aircraft. On my way. She drove back to the command center, where a video conference was already in progress. The main screen showed officials from Washington, including Defense Secretary Martinez. Colonel Crawford, Harrison said, tell them what you found. Diana stepped forward. The aircraft in Hangar 18 are 7 modified State Route 71 Blackbirds. They've been upgraded with stealth technology, advanced sensors, and modern avionics. Secretary Martinez leaned forward on the screen. Colonel, the State Route 71 was retired for good reasons. It was expensive, dangerous, and hard to maintain. Yes, ma'am. But these modifications address those issues. How? Improved engines, better materials, automated systems. They're still complex, but much more reliable than the original aircraft. Colonel Webb entered the room and took a seat. Secretary Martinez, I've reviewed the situation. These aircraft are museum pieces. We should focus on restoring our satellite network. How long will that take? Martinez asked. Weeks. Maybe months. And in the meantime? We use human intelligence. Ground-based radar. Traditional methods. Diana stepped forward. Ma'am, traditional methods won't work against nuclear weapons in hidden locations. We need overhead reconnaissance. From aircraft that haven't flown combat missions in decades? These have. Project Shadowhawk conducted dozens of missions between 2003 and 2015. The screen went quiet. Martinez looked at someone off camera. What's Project Shadowhawk? Webb shifted in his chair. A classified program that was discontinued. Why was it discontinued? Because it was deemed unnecessary. Diana felt anger building. It was deemed politically inconvenient. Colonel, Webb said sharply, that's not your assessment to make. Isn't it? I've read the files. The project was cancelled not because it failed, but because it worked too well. Martinez looked confused. Explain. These aircraft could penetrate any airspace undetected. They could gather intelligence from anywhere in the world. That made our allies nervous and our enemies desperate. So we abandoned a successful program? Webb leaned forward. We made a strategic decision to rely on satellite technology and international cooperation. And now our satellites are down and our enemies are cooperating against us. Diana walked to the display screen. Ma'am, these aircraft represent 20 years of American innovation. They're faster than anything our enemies have. They're invisible to most radar. And they work when everything else fails. What about pilots? We have qualified pilots. They've been maintaining their certifications. Martinez looked at someone off camera again. What's the Pentagon's position? Webb stood up. The Pentagon believes we should focus resources on restoring proven systems, not gambling on experimental aircraft. They're not experimental. They're operational. They're old. Diana felt her patience snap. Old? These aircraft use technology that's still classified. They have capabilities our newest jets don't have. Colonel, Martinez said, what exactly are you proposing? I'm proposing we use the tools we have. Right now, these aircraft are our only option for real-time intelligence gathering. Webb shook his head. It's too risky. We don't know what we're dealing with. We know exactly what we're dealing with. We're dealing with an enemy that's smarter than we thought. They didn't just attack our satellites. They studied our entire system and found its weakness. Which is? We put all our eggs in one basket. We became dependent on technology that could be turned against us. Diana looked directly at the screen. Secretary Martinez, America's strength has always been our ability to adapt. When the British had the best navy, we built submarines. When the Germans had the best tanks, we built better aircraft. When the Soviets had nuclear weapons, we built missile defense. Your point? My point is that we don't win by doing what our enemies expect. We win by doing what they can't prepare for. Martinez was quiet for a long moment. How many aircraft are operational? 7. All different configurations. Each one designed for specific mission types. And you believe they can gather the intelligence we need? I know they can. The question is whether we have the courage to use them. Webb stood up. Secretary Martinez, with respect, this conversation is academic. These aircraft haven't been certified for combat operations. The insurance alone would be prohibitive. Diana stared at him. Insurance? We're talking about nuclear weapons and you're worried about insurance? I'm worried about responsible leadership. Responsible leadership is using every tool at our disposal to protect American lives. Martinez raised her hand. Enough. Colonel Crawford, you have 24 hours to prove these aircraft are viable. If you can demonstrate their capabilities, we'll consider authorization. Webb looked stunned. Ma'am, that's not enough time for proper evaluation. It's the time we have. Colonel Crawford, what do you need? Diana thought quickly. Access to the aircraft. A qualified pilot. And permission to conduct a test flight. Granted. But Colonel, if this fails, it's on you. Yes, ma'am. The screen went dark. Webb turned to Diana. You have no idea what you're getting into. I know exactly what I'm getting into. I'm getting into the fight of our lives. Webb walked to the door. 24 hours isn't enough time to prove anything. It's enough time to prove everything. After Webb left, General Harrison approached Diana. You realize you just bet your career on those aircraft? I bet my career on doing the right thing. And if you're wrong, then we'll face our enemies blind. And that's not acceptable. Harrison nodded slowly. Go make it work, Diana. A lot of people are counting on you. Diana left the command center and drove back to Hangar 18. Tank was waiting for her. How did it go? We have 24 hours to prove these aircraft work. Tank smiled. Better get started then. Diana looked at the aircraft, now humming with activity as ground crews prepared it for flight. Tank, are you sure about this? Colonel, I've been waiting 15 years for this moment. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. Diana walked to the aircraft and placed her hand on its wing. Tomorrow, she would either save her career or end it. But tonight, she had work to do. Diana stood next to the State Route 71 as the sun rose over Edwards Air Force Base. The aircraft looked different in daylight, its black skin seeming to absorb the morning light. Ready? Tank asked. As ready as I'll ever be. Colonel Martinez walked over from the observation area. Colonel Crawford, are you sure about this? No, ma'am. But I'm sure we need to try. The pilot, Major Reynolds, climbed down from the cockpit. Pre-flight complete. Everything looks good. Reynolds was one of the retired pilots Tank had mentioned. Gray-haired but sharp-eyed, he moved with the confidence of someone who'd done this before. How long since your last flight in one of these? Diana asked. 6 months. We do monthly check flights. And you're comfortable with this mission? More comfortable than sitting on the ground while our enemies move nuclear weapons. Diana checked her watch. We have 6 hours before the Pentagon meeting. Can we get what we need? The aircraft can stay up for 4 hours. More than enough time. General Harrison approached the group. Diana, Washington is watching. No pressure. None at all, sir. Reynolds climbed back into the cockpit. Diana watched him run through his startup procedures. The engines began to whine, building to a roar that shook the hangar. Control, this is Shadowhawk 1 requesting clearance for test flight. Shadowhawk 1, you are cleared for departure. Proceed to restricted airspace Delta 7. Diana put on her headset. Shadowhawk 1, this is ground control. We're monitoring all systems. Copy, ground control. Beginning taxi. The aircraft rolled out of the hangar slowly, its long nose pointing toward the runway. Diana had seen SR-71s in museums, but watching one move under its own power was different. It looked alive. Shadowhawk 1 approaching runway 27. Requesting permission to take off. Shadowhawk 1, you are cleared for takeoff. Diana watched the aircraft accelerate down the runway. At first it seemed slow, almost hesitant. Then it lifted off and climbed rapidly, disappearing into the morning sky. Shadowhawk 1, how do you read? Loud and clear, ground control. Climbing to operational altitude. Diana turned to Tank. How high will he go? 80,000 feet. Above most commercial aircraft, below most satellites. And the stealth systems? Should be invisible to everything except our own tracking. Diana watched the radar display. The aircraft's blip was faint, flickering in and out of detection. It's working. Shadowhawk 1, beginning systems test. Activating enhanced sensors. On the ground, Diana watched multiple screens light up with data. The aircraft's cameras were providing crystal-clear images of the landscape below. The resolution was incredible. Tank, this is better than satellite imagery. That's the idea. No transmission delay, no weather interference, no cyber attacks. Shadowhawk 1, proceeding to test Area Bravo. Beginning evasion protocols. Diana watched the radar screen as the aircraft's signature disappeared completely. For 30 seconds, there was nothing. Then it reappeared in a different location. How did he do that? Adaptive camouflage and radar dampening. The aircraft can become nearly invisible for short periods. Diana's radio crackled. Ground control, this is Shadowhawk 1. I'm picking up unusual radio traffic on military frequencies. What kind of traffic? Coded transmissions. Multiple sources. Sounds like coordination signals. Diana felt her pulse quicken. Can you triangulate the sources? Working on it. First source appears to be North Korea. Second source. Iran. Third source. Russia. They're talking to each other. Shadowhawk 1, can you intercept the transmissions? Negative. But I can record them for analysis. Diana looked at Harrison. This is exactly what we needed. Shadowhawk 1, continue monitoring. Report any changes. Copy. Proceeding to secondary test area. 20 minutes later, Reynolds' voice came through the radio again. Ground control, I'm seeing vehicle movement on the ground. Large convoy heading east. Where? Approximately 50 miles north of base. Multiple heavy vehicles. Some kind of military operation. Diana checked her maps. That's not one of our exercises. Shadowhawk 1, can you get closer? Negative. I'm maintaining operational security. Understood. Continue observation. Diana watched the screens as the aircraft's cameras tracked the convoy. Military vehicles, definitely not American. Moving in formation toward an unknown destination. Ground control, this is Shadowhawk 1. The convoy has stopped. Vehicles are deploying in defensive positions. Deploying for what? Unknown. But this looks like preparation for something big. Diana felt cold. Shadowhawk 1, return to base immediately. Copy. Beginning descent. As the aircraft landed, Diana realized they had proven more than just the aircraft's capabilities. They had discovered active enemy operations on American soil. Reynolds shut down the engines and climbed out. How did we do? Better than expected. What did you see up there? Everything. The aircraft worked perfectly. But we have bigger problems than proving these birds can fly. Diana looked at the data they had collected. Hours of intercepted communications, detailed photographs of enemy movements, electronic intelligence that their satellites could never have gathered. Tank, how quickly can we get all 7 aircraft operational? All 7? That would take days. We might not have days. General Harrison walked over. The Pentagon is calling. They want a preliminary report. Diana looked at the screens full of intelligence data. Tell them we proved the aircraft work. But more importantly, tell them we proved we need them. What about the convoy? That's a problem for tomorrow. Tonight, we celebrate the fact that we can still see our enemies. Reynolds packed up his gear. Colonel, those aircraft aren't just functional. They're essential. I know. The question is whether Washington will listen. They'll listen. The data speaks for itself. Diana walked back to the aircraft. It sat quietly on the tarmac, its mission complete. But she knew this was just the beginning. Tank, prep all 7 aircraft. I have a feeling we're going to need them. Already started. We'll be ready. Diana looked at her watch. In 2 hours, she would brief the Pentagon on their success. But first, she had to figure out what to do about the enemy convoy that was now positioned 50 miles from the base. The old bird had proven it could still fly. Now it was time to prove it could still fight. Diana sat in the hearing room, facing a panel of 5 military judges. The charges were serious: disobeying direct orders, conducting unauthorized flight operations, and compromising classified aircraft. Colonel Crawford, the lead judge, said, "You stand accused of willfully violating Pentagon directives. How do you respond?" "I followed my duty to protect American lives, sir." Colonel Webb sat at the prosecutor's table, his face stern. "Your Honor, the defendant ignored clear orders from the Pentagon. She authorized a test flight without proper clearance. The clearance came from Secretary Martinez herself. For a demonstration, not an intelligence-gathering mission." Diana looked at the panel. "The mission evolved based on what we discovered. That's what good intelligence work requires." The lead judge consulted his notes. "Colonel, explain the intelligence you gathered." "We intercepted coordinated communications between North Korea, Iran, and Russia. We documented enemy vehicle movements on American soil. We proved that hostile forces are operating within our borders. And this intelligence was gathered during an unauthorized extension of your test flight?" "Yes, sir." Webb stood up. "Your Honor, the defendant exceeded her authority. She put classified aircraft at risk for unproven intelligence." "Unproven?" Diana pulled out a folder. "The convoy we photographed was intercepted by FBI units 6 hours after our flight. They found weapons and communications equipment. 3 foreign agents were arrested." The judges exchanged glances. The lead judge leaned forward. "You're saying this intelligence prevented a terrorist attack?" "I'm saying it prevented something. We'll never know what because we stopped it." General Harrison entered the room and approached the bench. "Your Honor, I have new information." "Proceed, General." "The intelligence gathered by Colonel Crawford's flight led to the discovery of a coordinated attack on 3 military installations. The attack was scheduled for yesterday. It was prevented because we knew it was coming." Webb looked surprised. "That information wasn't in the briefing materials." "It's classified. But given the charges against Colonel Crawford, I felt the panel should know." The lead judge studied the documents Harrison provided. "General, are you saying Colonel Crawford's actions saved lives?" "I'm saying her actions saved many lives. And possibly prevented a wider conflict." Diana felt relief wash over her. "Sir, I knew the flight was risky. But the intelligence we gathered was too important to ignore." "Why didn't you seek additional authorization?" "Because time was critical. Every minute we waited was another minute for our enemies to complete their plans." The lead judge called for a recess. Diana walked outside, where Tank was waiting. "How did it go?" "Better than expected. Harrison brought evidence that we prevented attacks." "Good. Those aircraft prove their worth." "What's the status of the squadron?" "All 7 aircraft are operational. We have 12 qualified pilots. The Pentagon quietly authorized a limited program yesterday." Diana smiled. "So we won?" "We won. The state Route 71 is back in service. Officially this time." When the hearing resumed, the lead judge delivered the verdict. "Colonel Crawford, this panel finds that while you exceeded your authority, you acted in the best interests of national security. The charges are dismissed." Diana stood up. "Thank you, sir. Furthermore, you are hereby promoted to full colonel and assigned as commanding officer of the new State Route 71 Reconnaissance Squadron." Webb looked stunned. "Your Honor, this sets a dangerous precedent." "Colonel Webb, this recognizes exceptional service under extraordinary circumstances." After the hearing, Diana walked back to Hangar 18. The aircraft were lined up outside, their black shapes gleaming in the afternoon sun. Young pilots were conducting pre-flight inspections, preparing for training missions. Tank approached her. Congratulations, Colonel. Thank you. But this isn't about me. It's about these aircraft and what they represent. Which is American ingenuity. The willingness to try new things. The courage to keep old things when they still work. Diana walked to the first aircraft and ran her hand along its wing. Tank, I want you to know something. My grandmother flew one of these in the 1970s. Tank looked surprised. Your grandmother? Captain Sarah Crawford. She was one of the first women to pilot in State Route 71. Test flights only, but she helped develop the training protocols. I never knew that. Neither did I until I found her photo in the Pentagon archives yesterday. She's the reason I became a pilot. Tank smiled. She'd be proud. I think she would be. She always said the best aircraft are the ones that surprise you. A young lieutenant approached them. Colonel Crawford? I'm Lieutenant Johnson. I'm assigned to your squadron. Welcome, Lieutenant. First time working with SR-71s? Yes, ma'am. I've studied them, but I've never seen one up close. Diana looked at the aircraft, then at the young pilot. Lieutenant, these aircraft are more than machines. They're a link to the past and a bridge to the future. Ma'am? They were built by people who believed in pushing boundaries. Who refused to accept limitations. That's what we do here. Yes, ma'am. And Lieutenant? We don't just fly these aircraft. We honor them. Every flight is a reminder that American innovation doesn't get old. It gets better. Johnson nodded and walked back to his aircraft. Tank watched him go. Good kid. He'll learn. They all will. That's what this program is about. Passing on knowledge. Keeping traditions alive. Diana looked at the hangar where she'd first discovered the hidden aircraft. Tank, do you think we'll ever need these aircraft again? I think we'll always need them. Maybe not for reconnaissance. Maybe not for intelligence. But we'll need what they represent. Which is the idea that Americans don't give up. When one solution doesn't work, we find another. When new technology fails, we remember what worked before. Diana walked back to the hangar. Inside, maintenance crews were working on the remaining aircraft. The sound of tools and engines filled the air. She pulled out her phone and called her mother. Mom, it's Diana. I wanted to tell you about Grandma Sarah. What about her? She was a pilot. A real pilot. She flew the State Route 71. How did you find out? Long story. But I'm following in her footsteps now. She would be so proud. Diana looked out at the aircraft, where the next generation of pilots was learning to fly machines that had been old before they were born. I think she is, Mom. I think she is. The sun was setting over Edwards Air Force Base. The SR-71 sat quietly on the tarmac, ready for whatever tomorrow would bring. Diana had saved more than just aircraft. She had saved a piece of American history. And in doing so, she had secured America's future. Diana's story reminds us that sometimes the old ways are the best ways, and that courage comes in many forms. Have you ever worked with technology that everyone thought was obsolete, only to discover it was exactly what you needed? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, please give it a like and subscribe for more tales of American military heritage and the brave people who serve.